This is Dr. Jerome Corsi, and we're here today with the Truth Central. Today is Friday, April 21st, 2023. Thank you for joining us. Let's get right into the news today. The first story I want to cover has to do with Joe Biden, who is evidently going to be in the final stages of getting ready to announce his presidency as early as next Tuesday, that he's going to run for president again in 2024. The story is being covered by both the New York Times and the Washington Post. I think the Washington Post actually broke the story. And the idea is that Biden is going to do essentially a low-key video announcement next Tuesday, which is the fourth anniversary of his entry into the 2020 race. And basically, one of Biden's favorite poems, which he's often quoted, is about making history and hope rhyme. Well, that's interesting. History and hope don't rhyme, but that's fine. It won't matter in Biden land. At any rate, my thoughts about this are, first of all, that I'm surprised he's going to run for president again. I'm not sure who the puppet master is behind the scenes. But at any rate, my thought is, if Biden does run again, he's going to increase the chances that he'll have an investigation of the Hunter Biden issues, which continue to percolate. I'm not sure whether if Biden dropped out, the story just goes away, or whether Biden is calculating that if he remains in the presidency, he has the power to continue to block the story from being investigated. One way or the other, I'm sure they have to calculate their best strategy. I doubt that Biden will be the only candidate. I think we're going to see Newsom from California enter the race. There's rumors that Michelle Obama wants to enter the race. She certainly has her book out, the same strategy that Obama did, positioning a best-selling book and then utilizing that as a springboard to launch a presidential campaign. At any rate, I do expect there'll be competition in the Democratic field this year, as there will be in the Republican field, and it's very, very early stage at this point. But we'll keep an eye on it and see if Biden does make an announcement next week, as is expected. Now, the second story I want to cover is essentially I'm seeing more and more coverage of Hunter Biden by respectable mainstream media news sources. And it's very interesting that the New York Post seems to be leading the coverage. The Post, of course, was the one that led the publication of the Hunter Biden laptop and fought the issue that it was not Russian disinformation, that the laptop existed, or that the laptop was legitimate, or really Hunter Biden's recordings. The story today is that Joe Biden's presidential campaign prompted, goes back to 2000, former acting CIA Director Mike Morrell to help Biden by organizing 50 challengers, colleagues who supported Biden, to sign a letter in October 2020, and the New York Post reports falsely claiming that emails from Hunter Biden's laptop published by the Post were Russian disinformation. So in private sworn testimony, Morrell told the House Judiciary Committee that Antony Blinken, now Secretary of State, was the senior campaign official who reached out to him on or before October 17th, 2020, 3 days after the Post published an email from the laptop suggesting Hunter had introduced his Ukrainian business partner to his father, then vice president. So Morrell said, former CIA director, that he organized this letter to help Vice President Biden because I wanted him to win the election. Well, what's remarkable to me about this story is that it's coming out, that it's being published by the New York Post. The New York Post is pushing the Hunter Biden story. We're going to follow it very closely to see if it has any legs. And it's, of course, part of the issue that The Department of Justice these days is very much one-sided. We do not. It's a frightening issue when you have the Department of Justice not willing to go in a neutral fashion, but to become a political arm of the Democratic Party. Our justice system should not become politicized. This is what the Church Committee was about, investigating Richard Nixon when he was president, using the CIA to investigate protesters against the Vietnam War. At the time, that was a big scandal. Today, that President Trump is indicted by a clearly anti-Trump prosecutor in New York is hardly a story. And again, these are the politicalization of politics to actually make politics more of a crime if you're not on the winning side or the side that's most in favor politically with the Department of Justice. That's a very frightening prospect. And I think it's one that all Americans ought to be aware of and ought to oppose, because without impartial justice, there basically is no justice. Chris, do you want to comment on the politics?
It's funny you mentioned there's people that are kind of trying to run against Joe Biden, and the idea that the Hunter Biden laptop has been covered up for so long. This has been a big deal since the 2020s. You found a gentleman business owner was slandered and dragged through the mud for all sorts of time. You're finding these same institutions who were denying the Hunter Biden laptop and proud of the fact that they were hiding it, gloating over the controversy that Fox News is facing right now over the Dominion lawsuit. So there's a lot of navigating the propaganda versus truth in media today there's probably no word to describe. It's difficult. Exacerbating. That's the word.
Well, look, that's why we're the Truth Central. We're going to expose these things, and we're going to call it like it is. And the reality is, we have a very politicized media coverage, which is in lockstep with this leftist agenda that is in control of the Department of Justice, the CIA, and virtually all of Washington's institutions. And it's extremely dangerous when any country, begins to criminalize politics. And that's what we're basically seeing. That's what's frightening. Let's go to the next set of stories, because I think they're extremely important. I want to start with this story on the Federal Reserve tax receipts that are coming in. This is important because we're tracking the likelihood that we're going to go into a massive recession. Now, this comes from Zero Hedge, which I do follow. It's a very good site. And Zero Hedge is reporting that as they look at the tax receipts, right now is tax season. Everyone's supposed to have filed their income tax or gotten an extension. And the receipts are being monitored that are coming into the Treasury. What we're finding is in the tax receipts for the April filing season are running about 29% below a year ago. Now, this is a decline. Goldman Sachs actually had been projecting about a 28% decline. And Goldman Sachs was saying in turn that would hit in late July as a recession. That's been moved up from Goldman Sachs, which was predicting that this recession would become official in August. But the problem is that when you look at the month-to-date receipts, the different measures of these receipts, they're down as much as a third. And it's at a time when essentially what the Bureau of Labor Statistics is claiming is that there are millions more working taxpayers than there were a year ago at this time, although we're seeing that the jobless numbers applying for unemployment insurance are increasing. So essentially, if we do not get the tax receipts coming in, if April and May non-withheld tax receipts are down by 35% or more, and there's a distinct danger that may be the case, the Treasury seems more likely to announce an early June debt limit deadline, which would be the worst case scenario, would force Congress and Biden in the next few weeks to do something they don't like to do, but a market style crash may prompt them to do it, and that is that raising the debt ceiling is sooner rather than later. Again, this is a complex set of economics, but essentially tax receipts are a measure of economic activity. And if the tax receipts are 25% down from last year, that's a very bad sign for economic growth. We could be entering a period, which I'm saying we will enter, of stagflation, which is stagnant economic growth, and at the same time, high inflation, which does not look like it's going to ease off at all. Now, let's go to the next story, which is if we just go a little bit higher here on the homepage, you'll see that the jobs, bank earnings, etc., the job data are pointing also to a recession. The Conference Board, which is a group that does an indicator of confidence among business leaders, dropped unexpectedly sharply to its lowest level since November 2020. It's the 12th consecutive monthly decline, which suggests that this is like, we haven't seen a run like this in decline since 2007 to 2009. We're getting a combination here. We're getting a perfect storm. We're getting high energy prices. We're getting high inflation. At the same time, we're getting to see lack of confidence, jobs dropping off. So essentially, we're going to have a stagnant economy with inflation. We haven't had this. It's a combination of the 1970s with Jimmy Carter and the OPEC oil embargo, which caused a first economic downturn in recent memory, and then the subprime real estate market that collapsed in 2008, 2009. And that was the second major collapse that we've experienced in recent years. So when you look at the measures here, concrete measures of the labor market, the latest data show the initial jobless claims are rising again. And people like CEO of Meta, Mark Zuckerberg, says basically that the social media company tends to scale back employee growth just to 1% to 2% a year, while other companies, including Elon Musk at Twitter, are laying off massive numbers of tech workers. So essentially, I'd say one more point here in this article, that is, traders have given up hope the Federal Reserve is going to ride to the rescue by pausing its rate hiking. In the comments in their last Federal Open Market meeting, the speakers were basically doubling down, saying that they're going to continue raising rates, and this Federal Watch tool, which measures the chances of a rate increase, are saying there's an 85% chance of a 25 basis point increase at the May Federal Reserve meeting. Now, the Federal Reserve raises another 25 basis points, the interest rates, it's going to have a massive impact on slowing down the economy even further, which means the Fed has not controlled inflation. And with OPEC now cutting oil production, we're going to see an increase in inflation numbers, even reported inflation numbers, because the last set of numbers, which we just saw for March, were down to 5.5% only because energy was down. Food had actually increased about 8% even in March. So if we get increases in oil prices, which again I think are likely, we're going to see the inflation rates start going up again, which will force the Fed to do more interest rate hikes. Now, on to the next story, which is connected here, is that I see the potential for home prices, for homes essentially to go into a complete tailspin. U.S. existing home sales decreased 2.4% in March from the prior month to a seasonally adjusted rate of 4.4 million. This is according to the National Association of Realtors. March sales fell 22% from a year earlier. Home sales in the U.S. in March were a very sluggish start to this critical season where people do buy homes in the spring and early summer. And again, it's because largely of the interest rate hikes. If you take a look at the interest rate, this article had a very good analysis of it. Mortgage rates have fluctuated in recent months since hitting 20-year highs above 7% in the fall. That's where they were in the fall. The average rate for a 30-year fixed mortgage was 6.39%. 6.39% this year, up from 5.11 a year earlier, and the first increase after 5 straight weeks of decline. This according to Freddie Mac, which is one of the government's large semi-private mortgage finance organizations. And that's disturbing because when interest rates get this high, your borrowing costs get to be very high because you've got to pay a lot more interest. If you'll recall, through the Obama years, interest rates were about zero. And there were mortgage deals at under 2%. And today, that's just not possible. Your interest paid on hundreds of thousands of dollars borrowed on a mortgage is a lot higher, whether it's a fixed or adjustable rate mortgage, if the interest rates themselves are higher. And that's going to mean it's a barrier to people buying homes. We're going to start seeing homes on the market for a lot longer period of time. Remember, right after the end of the pandemic, in certain areas like New Jersey, any home for sale was going at a premium and quickly, same day it was offered. Often people were bidding more than was asked on homes because of the flight from New York to get out of New York City after the pandemic and move to New Jersey. And today, it's a dormant market. Today, houses are languishing. They're staying on the market for a longer period of time, which means their value is going to decrease. It also means that you're going to find that people who are in distressed situations, maybe they've lost jobs and have substantial mortgages, are not able to pay their mortgages. Now, after a certain point in time, the bank is going to foreclose the house. And if you can't pay the mortgages, you could lose all the equity you put into the house, because if the bank forecloses, the bank can sell that house at a discount, or some distressed owners will just basically say, I'm looking for somebody to take over my payments. I know I'm going to lose my equity, but I don't want the continuing deterioration of my credit situation because I'm going to lose the house anyway. And the bank is going to come after me for the outstanding mortgage that yet remains to be paid that the bank subsidized. So again, I think we're finding the economy all the signs are pointing to a very deep recession. And Chris, I'd like you to show the Swiss America, one of our sponsors here. And let's take a look at this Walking Liberty half dollar. I'm encouraging you very strongly to talk with Swiss America. If you do fill out this form, go up to our sponsors and then fill out this form. You can talk with the counselors. It's consultative selling at Swiss America. They will contact you. You can buy a first-time introductory offer up to 250 of these coins. They're beautiful coins. They have about 90% actual silver, and it's basically a lost leader for Swiss America. They're letting you buy these coins at basically their value of the silver itself. It's good to have tangible value. It's why I'm recommending getting gold, silver, or platinum. And Swiss America specializes in making sure you get receipt of the precious metals that you buy. It's very important. I think also, Chris, we have a new sponsor today, which is this basically investment tool. If you can pull it up, Eric Smith, who's been a very, very good friend. I've worked with Eric on this project for about 10 years. He was he's a lawyer who was into the ERISA market, working to help people get their qualified and retirement plan set up properly, he's developed a tool. This is the Pro Rapid Review. Now, this is a remarkable tool, and you can subscribe to it. But what it does is there's a retail version which is on the website. And if you just read under our sponsors, you'll see all the information to get to the website. If you own a mutual fund, this tool allows you to kind of dial in your preferences. Are you looking for long-term return, short-term return? What kind of volatility do you want? You set your preferences. And then you say, well, I own XYZ growth fund. Well, this tool will show you that your XYZ growth fund in a competitive field where there are also maybe several hundred other funds exactly like the one you have, yours is ranked anywhere from number 1 till the bottom. And you're likely to have one that's not ranked at the top. If that's the case, you might want to question who your investment advisor is. It's also going to be a very disruptive tool. We're talking now to individual brokerage groups, financial planning groups that are looking to license this tool in order to show potential customers that their IRA does not have the best funds selected by their current advisor. It's going to be a tool that can be used to get business from other financial planners. And this tool answers a lot of disclosure questions that are required today by FINRA and the others, where you can really tell a client that where their fund is ranked. You can know if it's top ranked or not top ranked given the client's preferences. It's really a suitability issue. So we're also talking with some major brokerage firms that want this tool to be utilized. Now, Chris, if you'll look down a little bit further, I think there's ways to contact the Rapid Pro Review group. What do you do here, Chris, to be able to get in touch with them? You basically click some of these yellow tabs to get in touch with the groups. You'll basically fill out some forms and be able to get in contact with them. But here you can look at your annual subscription rate. You can basically subscribe to this tool, get some coupons to do so, and we'll be making sure that this tool lets you be in direct touch with the Pro Rapid Review group, where you can explore this tool and have discussions with them to see there's a form you fill out for your licensing. Basically, if you want to license the tool, go right on this, but we're going to modify this a little bit to make sure that you also can just contact for information. That's the same way it is with Swiss America. Chris, you want to comment on the economic situation right now? Because I'm very focused on trying to prepare people for what I see as a coming crisis.
The Federal Reserve has increased its rates consistently over the last year plus. That's an issue. You mentioned that home prices are coming down. That's probably the direct result, or at least an indirect result, of two things. This is, again, what I'm seeing out in the field. Their desire to buy houses has kind of waned a little bit from the COVID years. Secondly, they're just very, very high, pretty much overvalued at this point in a lot of areas. Thirdly, if mortgage rates go up, then people aren't going to pay all sorts of money or high interest rate for overpriced houses. So somewhere that has to give.
I agree. I mean, I think many areas of the country, real estate is certainly overpriced, and this will cause an adjustment. And for those who are looking to go into buying real estate, residential real estate, there's going to be opportunities here if you wait a while, where the prices will come down and you get better opportunities to grab real bargains. Commercial real estate's also crashing, and the crash that I see coming is not going to be a minor adjustment. We're going to see lending institutions fail. We're going to kind of see the repeat of what happened in 2008 and 2009. And it's going to be a perfect storm this time, because I think energy prices are going up. Now, that's the next story I want to cover here with this nuclear issue. you still have France and Germany closing nuclear power plants. Now, France has basically had a lot of trouble. France has a lot of nuclear power, and they're essentially, they've had a lot of the nuclear power plants in repair. They were getting old, but the prices, France's power prices for 2024 are looked to be double the German prices for next winter, as this huge French nuclear fleet continues to show signs of weak output and availability. So in France has had trouble with many of its nuclear reactors, which have been shut down for repairs and maintenance at several times over the past year. And Germany last week or this week has just taken offline its last 3 nuclear power plants. That happened on Saturday, ending more than 6 decades of commercial nuclear energy use. And Germany ended the nuclear power era despite continued concerns about energy security and energy supply after the Russian invasion of Ukraine and the end of the natural gas pipeline deliveries from Russia. So essentially, you've got in Europe a growing economic crisis. Now, the left wants to think, well, we can just have wind and solar. Let's put more money. We'll get more wind and solar. Well, again, that's not going to solve the problem. Wind and solar in the United States are only about 12.5% of all of our electricity generation. We increase the number of EVs, electric cars. We're going to just increase the need for more electricity, which is going to require hydrocarbon fuels. The fundamental issue is that wind and solar aren't going to replace the issue of hydrocarbon fuels. It's not going to happen. And going to electric vehicles is only probably going to delay further solar and wind, which are not technologies ready for prime time. They aren't sufficiently scalable. You can put a solar panel on your house, but you can't power a city with a solar farm unless you have an enormous amount of land devoted to it. Just think about it for a minute. If you had a battery, a small battery the size of a flashlight battery, and you could power a city with solar power stored in that battery, you wouldn't need government subsidies. The fact is that solar and wind require storage. They're expensive. They are not reliable. They're intermittent. Wind doesn't blow all the time. The sun doesn't shine all the time. And so therefore, you're being asked to rely on technologies which are going to make your energy more expensive at a time when the economy is going in a tailspin. And this is another reason why the green movement is going to cause inflation. It's as if all these forces, and I think the energy green movement has always been Malthusian, too many people, we need to get rid of the Marxism, neo-Marxist movement. We've got to get rid of capitalism by demonizing carbon dioxide. That's a way that it's going to allow people to have a justification for ending hydrocarbon fuels. And what's happened is it's become a matter of secular religion that global warming is happening because of hydrocarbon fuels being used in the industrial age. The scientific evidence for that proposition is very weak. Take a look at my book, The Truth About Energy, Global Warming, and Climate Change. You'll see why. It takes a little bit of effort to read that book, but if you educate yourself about climate science, the real climate science, you won't be fooled by these narratives that are being proposed as if they were true. Chris, you want to comment on that? And I'll cue up the next story when we're getting ready. Let me do the next story, then you can comment.
I have that rolling here.
The last story I want to cover today, and I want to do it quickly, is another very important story that's overlooked, which is that the EU Parliament yesterday approved crypto licensing and fund transfer rules. Lawmakers in the European Union on Thursday, April 20th, they voted 2023. They voted in favor of new crypto licensing regime, a whole new the markets in crypto assets, which is MICA, CA. Essentially, they're in favor of a whole system including transfer of cryptocurrencies, which would create a crypto economy. I think Europe is ahead of the United States in this, and many of the cryptocurrencies are looking at Europe as a place to domicile. The European Union realizes that cryptocurrencies are going to have a role in the new token economy. Now, this is important when at the same time when the central banks are moving for central bank digital currencies, which many central banks would like to eliminate cryptocurrencies as a competitor they can't control. We're going to have that battle being fought out in the next few weeks. And if XRP wins its suit against the SEC, which I think is likely, then we're going to have a sea change in how cryptocurrencies are viewed in the United States and internationally. I think there is going to be a basis for cryptocurrencies. I continue to remind people that today, and if you want to invest in cryptocurrencies, you better do it with your casino money. In other words, it's still it's a risk. And if you see how cryptocurrencies fluctuate, how some of them disappear, how they're hypothecated, many of them out of nothing, it's a very risky market yet. It's in the very early stages. We're watching it very carefully. If you ask me, should I invest in cryptocurrency or gold or silver? I'm saying gold or silver. They have a long historical 2,000-3,000 year history of being worth something. Cryptocurrencies are brand new. I'm excited about their prospect. I think that there are ways that they could be extremely useful to decentralize control of money away from government control, central bank control. And I'm in favor of that. But we're going to watch them, and I'm going to continue to be cautious about this and encourage you to be cautious. But the important developments are occurring, and the important developments look like a stage is being set to keep cryptocurrency around. This European development yesterday was extremely important, and everyone should pay attention to it. This is Dr. Jerome Corsi. Today is Friday, April 21st, 2023. There's a lot going on in politics and economics. This is thetruthcentral.com. We're going to be broadcasting every day, and our job is to really make sure you're understanding the truth behind the news and have advance warning, so to begin thinking about what's going on and to get the truth about it. I think let's go back to fact-based. Let's get rid of the memes and the stories and the ideology that we can't disagree with. Let's return to free speech. Let's return to debate. Let's argue these issues out. Since the Enlightenment, we've been benefited greatly by demanding the rigors of science, the rigors of proof, the rigors of argumentation. And if we abandon that for the totalitarianism of secular religion ideology, we're going to quit advancing as a civilization. And I think the detriment to that will be a reduced standard of living for the world. As Dr. Jerome Corsi, in the end, God always wins. God will win here too. We will be back on Monday. Thank you for joining us. God bless.